Welcome to the Rethink Leadership Podcast with me, Jeremy Blain, CEO of Performance Works International. This podcast is grounded in business, digital, workforce, and leadership transformation for our times. My aim is to initiate conversations with experts, leaders, professionals who've got a story to tell and who we can all learn from. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel or simply go to performanceworks.global to access all the episodes to date. I'm sure you'll find something of interest. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Rethink Leadership Podcast with me, your host, Jeremy Blain, CEO of Performance Works International. In parallel to the transformational world we operate in, the not so surprising increase in mental, physical and other health issues have been central to the ongoing debate about how we transform our companies and ourselves in better ways, not just successful ways. Many have struggled mentally and or physically to cope, to work, to transform, and it's perhaps heartening that mental health and total personal wellness is now on boardroom agendas, not just in the hands of HR or the few that care. There's a long way to go. The journey is not always as easy as it may seem to some who practice this every day and are bought into it wholeheartedly, just like my guest and seasoned CEO, speaker and human success development coach, Johanna Godinez. Johanna is founder and CEO of B.A.Y Lifestyle, that's beyond Asana yoga to you and me. B.A.Y Lifestyle is into whole person wellness, and Johanna helps entrepreneurs, leaders and founders to up-level their life experience, embrace wellness practices and refocus their thought patterns through ELM, evolutionary life mapping, a method that Johanna practices day in, day out. She's been featured in the press, on radio and TV, and is at the forefront of driving the benefits of yoga and whole person wellness in the corporate world. I managed to grab Johanna on Zoom just before she started her day, while she was at a Starbucks in Puerto Rico to find out more. Hello and welcome to this episode of the Rethink Leadership Podcast with my guest Johanna, who is joining me all the way from the States. Johanna, thanks very much for joining me. Please introduce yourself and your journey as a business leader, a human success development coach, and please tell us how business is related to yoga.
Oh, absolutely. Wow, that's a lot of questions there. Let's start by, well, I'm a divine being, a divine part of experience, if you want to know who I am. But on a human level, I'm an MBA. So I went to school for business, but I realized quickly that being in the corporate world wasn't really my style. So I decided right away to start my own business. And I found health and wellness because I went through a depression while I was trying to figure out what I was going to do with my life after going to school for so long. I finished in 2007, and in 2008, there was a great economic shutdown here in the States, or so it was tough attempting to figure out what kind of business to start. And I had owned a racing school before that, but as we all know, that's kind of a luxury. So that wasn't going to be possible with the economy being in the state that it was. So through a depression, I found fitness and I fell in love with the world of health. And I found a way to save companies money by incorporating wellness programs. And that's where my real entrepreneur journey began. Because although I owned a racing school, that was more fun than it was work. So this was an actual business, and it was amazing. And so that was in 2000, the end of 2008. By 2011, I had been practicing yoga, but I hadn't really incorporated it into the business. And then slowly, my teacher in 2011 asked me why I wasn't teaching yoga. And I said that it's because that's what I did. It's not what I taught. And he looked at me and he was like, "So you're hoarding the one thing that you love so much." And that was like a slap in the face, like, wow. And I was like, okay, sign me up. So that October, I took my first teacher training. And that's really when I began to understand how much deeper the practice of yoga goes. Like most people, I found yoga through the body because of the body. I had been a dancer, I had been a gymnast, so it felt amazing in my body. I didn't struggle. I could already touch my toes, and it was just kind of learning and feeling it in my body, and it connected me to my body in a way that was magical. But I had never really looked past it, and it wasn't until teacher training when I really began to understand that, oh wow, meditation really is just another part of yoga, and yoga is something that you do 24/7 because there's 8 limbs of yoga, and your goal is to go through all 8 limbs. And the limbs include how you live and how you show up in the world, and how you treat your body, how you use your breath, how much you listen to your senses, and how much attention you pay to your senses, your ability to focus, your ability to meditate, and your ability to understand that you are just one part of creation. And since then, that's been my goal. So every coaching client that I see, every yoga teacher that I certify, my goal is for them to truly understand that yoga is a path to mental freedom. And it's how you understand yourself in the world, and it's how you understand what actually matters in the world, and your attachments. So it's very deep as to how much you can truly incorporate yoga and use it in everything in your life, including obviously your business.
Well, I've just been kind of checking my little list as we've been going along there, and I must go right back to the beginning and some things you said: dancer, gymnast, entrepreneur, CEO, and divine being, my very first for these podcasts. So thank you very much for joining me on that. And I love that story about how you eased into this, and the comment about you've been hoarding that one thing. I think that's
Mm.
so good, that kind of wake up call for yourself. And that led you to start Bay Lifestyle and beyond. So tell us a little bit about that, why it's important, and what are you seeing across business that's really highlighting this need in your lens at the moment?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's start from the fact that divine being is a true thing. And the reason why I said that is because when I developed Beyond Asana Yoga, my coaching business was called Life and Style Coaches, and I actually was hired by a fitness conglomerate called Bay Clubs in California. And I was brought on board to create some programming that was very specific to them. So I built a program called Glide Fit, and this other program that I was working on was Bay Lifestyle. And when COVID hit, they were like, "You can keep it." And I was like, "So you paid me to put this yoga teacher training together, and you're asking me to keep it?" Yes, okay, thank you. So since then, my whole company has been rebranded to Bay Lifestyle, and Bay stands for Beyond Asana Yoga. And the reason why I see this need in business right now is because so many of us are getting stuck in this self thing again, where like because there's this separateness and now everything is being done a little bit of a more disconnected way, people are kind of doing their own thing a lot of the time right now. And I find that by connecting, like let's say interdepartmentally, right, through masterminds, and understanding your thought patterns and understanding how everything fits together to create a whole, it helps you really value what everybody inputs, one, and two, it helps you see people's quote unquote weaknesses for what they are, and it helps you then understand how to support people in quote unquote their weakness so that you can help them build their strengths instead of having them waste time on weaknesses. We are too quick to point out when someone needs to do something different because they're doing something wrong, but we're not quick enough to look at people for what they actually can bring to the table, and not only enjoy bringing it to the table, but have it be what they are actually really successful at. And because right now we're so disconnected, it's really hard for us to see that right now, to see really like where does this person shine? How can I support this person in a different way? So yoga, what it does, if you use it in a corporate setting, the way that I'm incorporating it is it helps you, one, start to understand why you're getting stuck in certain things in your mind, right? What are your misconceptions, your limiting beliefs? And then once you understand why you've established your beliefs, where did those ideas even come from to begin with? And did those people, were they vetted? Did they have the right information, right? You start looking at yourself first, your beliefs, your actions. Why do I feel a certain way about something? Why do I react a certain way? Yoga is selfish in the way that it makes you take responsibility for everything, and it makes you look at yourself first instead of at other people, even if you quote unquote feel like somebody else is doing something wrong to you. It makes you look at yourself as, why am I reacting that way, instead of, oh, look what they're doing to me. It starts also to look at that as, what kind of pain are they projecting on me? So you start seeing your interactions with other people from a different perspective, which allows you then to stay in the present moment with what's happening and look beyond people's emotions and people's mistakes and people's BS and all of it. So yoga is really powerful because it helps you detach from all the self-limiting binds that you've created for yourself, and we all have them, and they start very simply. I am a woman, I am Hispanic, I am 40. Like, it starts with just like simple, but then you get into your religion, you get into your politics, you get into your sports team, you get into whether you like iPhones or Google. I mean, it gets ridiculous. And then you start attaching more to what separates you than to what unites you. And that's what creates suffering, lots and lots of suffering. So yoga teaches you how to see things for what they are, so yet that you don't attach to them, and you keep that mental space available where instead of having conversations in your mind, you're open to what just comes.
There's such rich stuff coming through on that, Joanna, and I really recognize the point about getting stuck, understanding why we're getting stuck, and taking responsibility, being accountable for that,
Mhm.
for your own development within that as well, and considering the whole. You're so right. We can pile so much on things, can't we? And particularly depending on the moment that we're feeling, the situation that we're in, choices we're making, it all can seem too much at times or not enough, and we start adding more. And I love that about supporting people through this and supporting to build strength, not just kind of knocking down the bricks that might be there getting in the way that we might call weaknesses or gaps or whatever you want to call them. So I'm really understanding that. And I've not, to be perfectly honest, I've not considered it as deeply as this before as well. And there's so much that resonated there. And of course, what I was immediately thinking of was that over the pandemic, we've had far more open discussion around mental health and wellness,
Yes.
which I'm sure you're seeing as well across from a business perspective, not just at home, but from a business perspective across employees at all levels. And I've got a very important question to follow up on that. As one of the leading wellness professionals across the US and a CEO yourself, I'm very interested to hear what mental health and wellness challenges and needs have manifested themselves when you consider executives, very senior people in our organizations, leaders, senior management, a population traditionally that have probably been or felt that they were immune, or other people have thought that
Mm.
they're immune to this, or maybe have not been so open. What's going on?
Oh, well, change. Change is what's going on. And as we know, if you've been in a position for 10 years and you're used to waking up, having your routine and having your thing, when things get turned upside down, everyone has to make changes. Everyone has to shift. Everyone has to. And for leaders, it's not just for themselves, but then it's also for their team. And for us as individuals, we're just looking at, oh, well, now I have to figure out school and figure out time with the kids and how to work and be a parent at the same space. And But as a CEO, like that's like that little itty bitty bitty part of all of it, because you have to figure out how you're going to keep the health of your company, the health of your employees, how you're going to continue functioning in a world that's completely changing. And unfortunately, a lot of people that get in the rut of doing things a certain way stay in this space of, oh, this is going to go away, this isn't going to last that long, and stay in that mode of reaction instead of action, right? Because the smart CEOs right away started making adjustments that long term were going to actually continue helping the health of their business. So it wasn't just let's get through the pandemic. It was like, okay, so we're making these changes and these are working, so we can implement these and actually keep these. Like, for example, I have a colleague who has a mentorship and mind mastermind podcast, and he had a $6,500 a month office. And now what they do is twice a week they rent a space for 2 hours. It costs them $120 a day. So we're talking less than $1,000 versus 6,500, and that 65 did not include electricity and the fact that they had coffee and things in the office, right? That was just rent. This space, you're renting the space and it has coffee and it has electricity and it has water. So, I mean, these these shifts are saving his company, I don't know, 50,000, 60,000 a year, just because he saw that it made it work, and then was like, if we continue implementing this, how would this look like? And it's totally dependent on the performance on his employees, right? If his employees were not taking advantage of this and were not getting their tasks completed, then things are going to change. But because everyone can be on the same page, because we're adults and we can communicate and see the benefits of certain things and understand that if we act a certain way, then we can continue having those perks. Then it's up to us to take that responsibility of, I'm earning this now. And this is something that I want to continue having. So I'm going to work towards that. So a big thing when a CEO begins to incorporate a yoga lifestyle is that it bleeds into the company. And it's incredible to see, for example, a CEO who understands that he's only as strong as his weakest employee, and therefore doesn't want to be the guy that knows the most in the room. In fact, he knows who knows what. And the second he's asked the question, he can actually point you to the person that can answer it in a way that's going to be completely understood by everyone, and who can answer follow-up questions, right? Because the CEO could have the company but not understand how to answer the follow-up questions. Meanwhile, the person that wrote him the report that he read to have that information will know a lot better how to answer these questions. So they're also really quick to highlight the benefits and the strengths of others, because again, you start understanding that a corporation is just an organism, just like your body. Your body isn't one thing. It's not your emotions or your mind or your body. It's everything that works in unison. So a corporation works the same way. It's an organism, which the brain is one department and the heart is another department and the gut is another department. But if one thing isn't aligned, everything starts to falter. It works the same way. So we have to treat it that way. And we have to find the health that it needs, which is why the corporate wellness programs and the mastermind programs are so powerful, because they increase not just the mental and physical health of people, but their productivity, because they're feeling better. Like they're happier people. So they're much more willing to do things, or to stay late, or to work a day late, or to do a task that may not necessarily be theirs to do, but they're doing it as a favor to some, like they're just, everyone just works together in homeostasis, which makes a better environment for everyone involved.
Yeah, and it goes right back to what you talked about before, which is, how do you approach change? Do you approach it as a short-term thing and we can't wait to get back to normal, or do the more enlightened, smart, as you call them, CEOs take it as an opportunity to rethink what they're doing and rethink how we lead in the business, rethink how the business is structured, whatever that is. I really get that and see that. And I really understand about their lifestyle, their yoga, let's say, well-being, how that bleeds into the company as well. That is walking the walk, isn't it, in terms of mental health and well-being things, so that he or she, and I like the way that you put that he or she is as strong as their weakest employee, and understanding that on a systemic level really changes the leadership game, in my view. And I, as you were talking, I was thinking, oh yeah, this is so powerful. So I'm going to ask you a question now, which is probably unfair, but I was just thinking about it then, is why should we, do you think, consider these kind of things, mental health, well-being, yoga, the new superpowers that we have in our lives and business?
I mean, the better question is, why wouldn't you consider like something like this? Because the thing is, like, anything that can help you live a life in which you're more intentional, more productive, happier, creating more balance, right? Because with all of that also comes boundaries. When you understand yourself and you understand your limits, you're also very quick to create your boundaries and be able to stand in your values. And that also makes you a stronger person. It lets you understand how not to be taken advantage of and how to have your gifts like seen for what they are and valued for what they are. A lot of us tend to undervalue ourselves, especially like if we're wanting to get that next client, like, oh, I'll give them a discount, or no, man, no. If they value what you do, like you they're gonna hire you because you're gonna show them that you can increase their productivity. You can increase. The thing is, a lot of this is about vibration, and most people don't understand that. So I don't love getting into that part of it. But the fact of the matter is, you're a magnet which attracts and repels and sheds, right? So as magnets, when we raise our vibration, we tend to attract opportunities and attract people that are also at that higher vibration. When people feel that higher vibration, they are affected by it, whether they know it or not, because your aura is much larger than what your physical body is. Like your energy field, if you want to call it that, vibrates, and it's out here. So like when you're sitting in your car and you're really mad and like everything seems to be going wrong in the road, you're literally attracting that because your energy field is wider than your car. So it would be ridiculous to not think that being a more balanced person and a more present person, because that's really what yoga creates, wouldn't help and bleed into everything that you do. So as entrepreneurs, it helps us also create more intentionality. For example, I was talking to a friend who's doing a like a webinar for chiropractors, and we were talking about how this could be incorporated. And I was like, well, I mean, knowing yourself, if you're starting a business, if you understand yourself, you can create a business that will sustain and support the lifestyle that you want. But if you don't understand yourself, then you're going to be reactive all the time and there's always going to be something missing. But for example, if I'm big on family, am I going to open a practice that's 6 days a week? No, right? Or if all I want to do is work, because am I going to have one place, or am I going to want to be able to maybe travel and go to different countries and volunteer my time? So how do I set something up that's going to support the lifestyle? And in order to do that, again, yoga always brings it back to you. You have to look at yourself and who you are and how you operate. And you have to understand that this life is not about your job and it's not about your business. Like success in the sense of like you have to have this and have to have that is BS. It's all created in someone's mind and everyone accepted it. And now it's the way that we think. But I mean, to me, success is the fact that I can travel and I can take a month out of my life and go travel. I can go to different countries and I can share information without needing to get paid for it because I want to, because their time is valuable enough as payment for what I'm offering. Like that to me is success. So it's also then creating what is your vision of success, and does your vision of success even serve you? Because if it is having $1 billion and you're making $25 an hour, like you will always suffer, because at 25 bucks an hour you're not going to get there. So if that's your definition and that's what you're tying your happiness to, you're never going to be happy. So it's also just being realistic and understanding the deeper meaning of life and the deeper meaning of our existence here, that it's not about work. It's about finding ourselves and walking each other home to find love, true love, like unconditional love, where you accept everything, everyone, everything as perfect as it is.
Yeah, as you were talking there, yoga, whole person wellness, truly is a superpower. And you do then start to let it bleed into all parts of your life, whether it's business, whether it's your life outside of business. And you do naturally start to appraise, what does success mean and how am I measuring success? Is it success on a human level, or is it all of these trappings that we've been taught in the current brand of capitalism that we're all kind of locked into? What makes
Yep.
success? And particularly, therefore, about the vibrations that you're giving off. That aura, that resonance. Is it more positive? Is it more negative? And how that impacts or even infects other people, positive or negatively. It's great, as you were talking there, it really sort of hit home how powerful that can be. And the how really is the logical next question then, Johanna, because um, understanding this is one thing, but like any mindset shift, that has to happen first before you get to sort of positive action. So, how are you working with organizations and executives to help them be more open about these challenges, opportunities, and how do you help them make progress through considering that whole person wellness and particularly your yoga?
Well, for individuals, we do something called ELM. So for professionals, it's called an evolutionary life mapping method. And what we do with ELM is we look at, it's a 2 week, or I'm sorry, a 2 day process. We do yoga, we do meditation. We tend to do it at a beautiful place. So you either come to Puerto Rico or we meet somewhere beautiful in the world. And we do a little retreat in which we get your mindset right first, because who's not in a better mindset when they're on vacation, right? And then from there, we create an environment in which you can really be open and honest. So that's the first thing, is we get you to get honest with yourself. And basically we make you look at what makes you who you are, your personality, your mentality, your physical body. How do you treat your body? How do you think of yourself? What's your spirituality like? What's your relationship with yourself? And then we look at the external factors, right? Your finances, and not just whether you have money or not. What's your relationship with money? What do you think of it? How does it make you feel? That kind of thing. Your relationship with other people, your business, your career, your environment, your physical environment, the people you hang out with, the places you hang out with, where your house is, like where are you, and what is externally affecting your life, your family, your relationships. In terms of yoga, this is called the yamas and the niyamas. They are how you show up for yourself. Is the niyamas are inside, and the yamas are how you treat or show up in the world outside. Then you have the health of your body, which is asana, and then your breath, which is pranayama. So we basically put different practices in play to make sure that you can be healthy in mind, healthy in body. And it really depends on the person, right? Which is why our process is so individualized. Like the only thing that's the same is the first 2 days, what we look at. But based on those 2 days, we determine what you need as a person. Now, in terms of what we do in a corporate setting, it's more like a mastermind. I'm Mastermind Association certified by Greg Reed, and he's a part of the Napoleon Hill Foundation. And to me, masterminds are like hello, they're like the oldest thing that's been written on. Like you can find masterminds from back in the pyramid ages. Like there's proof of masterminds. So to me, getting people in a company, and for example, getting all the department heads together, getting them to figure out what's my deepest personal problem and what's my deepest professional problem, and maybe not masterminding in public the personal one, maybe we would do that one-on-one, but masterminding with everyone in the company what your specific department is facing. Half the time somebody else in another department has an answer for you, and you've been killing yourself for 3 months trying to figure it out, but because you're so departmentalized, you're not looking out, right? So with these masterminds, what we're trying to do is, what kind of resources do other departments have that we're not taking into account? Not just resources in terms of financial, but in terms of mind, in terms of assets, right? In terms of ideas, in terms of people. Maybe there's a person that shouldn't be in that department, that should be in your department, because actually what they're doing here would actually fit better over there, but you wouldn't know that if you don't have these conversations. So it's a way to really connect, again, the same way that ELM does for your body, right? It starts to bring you into one organism that's aligned: mind, body, thought, direction, business, everything I'm doing with purpose. The same thing happens when you mastermind and do ELM for a business, but you do it from department to department so you can align everything. Because when you look at it that way, you can figure out what's causing the suffering, because the company as a whole is only as strong as its weakest department, just like your body as a whole is only as strong as the weakest part of it. So if you have a bad back, that's all you think about. It bothers you all day. If your thoughts are in the wrong place, that's all you think about. You're there all day. If your emotions are messed up, right? It takes over. Whether you understand that or not, it takes over. So understanding your own health, or understanding the health of your business, takes looking at all of the parts of the whole, and then figuring out how is everything affecting the life, the energy, the life force, right? Which is prana. It's called prana. And there's a life force that runs within you, and there's a life force that runs within your business, and it affects the way every single thing operates and where it comes from. So whether we're working with an individual or we're working with a business, we're still looking at the same thing. What is causing the suffering? The mental madness that doesn't let the body rest, that doesn't let the mind rest, that doesn't let anything else get aligned. And then we come up with tools to be able to address those situations, even if it means getting additional support, which many times that's exactly what it means, right? Because if that's your weakest point, then support in that area will help elevate that.
Well, I mean, you've been describing me there at the end. I mean, I know this when there's either important things or things I'm not so sure of, or big keynotes that I might be presenting, is that I know that I'm going to do a good job in one way, but the other one shoulder is saying that, the other shoulder here, the devil on the shoulder here is saying, but what if you're doing this? And you start to get that negative energy kind of coming in. It can be all consuming, as you say. Very interesting point. And that's why what resonates with me is your ELM, the evolutionary life mapping method, to align things together so that you can really, and particularly the yamas and the niyamas, how you show up internally and how that drives that kind of how you're showing up on the outside as well, just resonates hugely with me as well. I've always been a believer in healthy body, a healthy mind, healthy body, but it's easier said than done. So sometimes, so these are great examples, and that's why, as you so rightly said, your methods and then the mastermind sessions can really work on that. So we haven't got much time left here, but I would just love to leave Johanna, with some words of wisdom from yourself, maybe 3 to 5 tips that you could give those tuning in. Say, I want to make the most of these superpowers. I want to get connected again. I want to understand the power of well-being, and really living and breathing this. What would those tips be that you could get us started with?
The first one is that health looks very different for everyone. That's the first thing. Like moving your body could be lifting heavy things or walking a long distance. So what matters is that you're moving your body in some way and that you're challenging it in some way. The same thing with your mind. What Because each one of us is going to have something very individual that's causing those fluctuations or that suffering in our minds, we just need to start looking at our patterns. And it starts with mindfulness. So meditation is hard for many people to just sit in silence. They don't really know what they're doing. So it doesn't make sense to them what should be happening. But mindfulness is a little different because mindfulness can happen in everything that you do. For example, let's say that you're going out for a walk. You connect with the bottom of your foot and you literally just focus on how your feet are hitting the ground. It might make you walk a little slower, but that's all you're focusing on. And then your mind is going to think of something else, but you're going to bring it back to the bottom of your foot. And then you're going to look at a bird, oh, pretty bird. And then you're going to bring it back to the bottom of your foot. And then you're going to think of judgment and you're going to bring it to the bottom of your foot. What happens? You notice that the thought patterns repeat. You start seeing the patterns in the thoughts and you start seeing what emotional responses each one of those thoughts happen. Because here's the thing. Did you think that thought? No, the thought comes. You either have a conversation with it or you don't. But the initial thought happens. It's just inspiration. It's not yours. It comes from consciousness, but your consciousness picks it up and brings it into you based on your DNA, your conditioning, and who you are, right? So what happens is you start seeing the patterns and you start to notice, okay, this is where most of my thoughts are fluctuating. Why? Where is that coming from? What kind of limiting belief or thing happened to me? And then in terms of your body, just make one change at a time. Start by putting a glass of water next to your bed and every morning sit and drink it before you get up. Start eating a little bit less food. The easiest way is buy smaller plates and use smaller plates because your mind doesn't notice the plate being smaller, but it notices if there's less food on a bigger plate. So trick yourself. Like I don't really drink too much coffee. I drink coffee every day, but it's really just a hot protein shake. And it literally gives me the energy of coffee. My body somehow is tricked into thinking that I'm drinking the coffee and it works like coffee even when it doesn't have caffeine. So it's finding those things about yourself that you're like, man, I could use a little change here to improve who I am. Okay, this is the way that I act and react. So what tool can I employ that I myself knows that will work best based on who I am? And again, it all comes back to understanding who you are. Because the more you understand who you are, the more you can understand what things you put into place and what you need to make you a more complete and more balanced human being.
What a lovely way to end. Right back to ourselves to get that deeper understanding of ourselves as well. Well, Joanna, I think this is the Rethink Leadership podcast, and I think this is a really kind of important punctuation point in modern leadership in the fast-paced world we're living in our lives and at work, to take stock, understand ourselves, be more mindful, but embrace these new superpowers that we've been talking about. And I'm sure that those tuning in will want to get in touch. So how do they touch base with you following this, Joanna?
You can always contact me on WhatsApp at 815-501-5070 with the +1 in front of it because I'm in the US. bay-lifestyle.com is my website, or bay_lifestyle PR on Instagram. And you can just find me Johanna Godinez on LinkedIn. And yeah, anywhere you connect with me, I will. The easiest way is if you contact me on WhatsApp, because I don't get a lot of other dings on social media or anything, but I will always talk on WhatsApp.
Great. Well, thank you very much indeed, Johanna, for joining me and for giving us such a brilliant explanation of all of this, but also food for thought for every leader in the modern world. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks for having me. It's been an honor. Namaste.
Thank you. Goodbye, Johanna. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Rethink Leadership Podcast with me, Jeremy Blain. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel or simply go to performanceworks.global to access all the episodes to date. We'll see you next time.